friends. Oh, I don't have friends. Nah, I do. I'm still disappointed. I truly don't understand people who I don't understand people who don't seem to get why who are like, oh, I don't understand why people want horrible multiplayer where you can like bump into people and get people killed all the time. Like, this one's so much better. You can just play the game normal. Or I even saw somebody being like, I think the new minimal multiplayer, online multiplayer is good. That way, because they were saying like getting super far in the game with a friend and then not having any of that progress saved on your own file is not good. And then people like, oh, and then somebody was like, oh, but people would complain in either direction, like, but yeah, people were like, oh, people would complain if you got to keep the progress in online multiplayer, or if you didn't. Like, people would complain in either direction, like, oh, I don't want to have that progress, I want to, like, make my own progress. In my mind, I'm like, okay, me personally, I like playing through games once with a friend and then once on my own, especially when it's like a Mario platformer game, because it's just a wholly different experience for me. And I usually enjoy these games enough to where it's like, I don't care, you know? It's like, sure, whatever, just make it its own. I will gladly play this twice. I'm probably gonna play this twice over anyways. But I don't understand what, like, people's sudden aversion to, like, classic multiplayer, where you, like, get to interact with each other. I truly do not understand. Yeah, I don't understand how it's even I just don't understand how it's even, like, a question why people would want, like, the multiplayer from New Super Mario Bros. Back in this one. Even at least as an option, you know? Or to have, like, that kind of multiplayer. Or even, let's say we don't get that kind of multiplayer. Fine, whatever. We still get to play with our friends. Cool. Truly all I want at the end of the day. But for the online, how come it's like 12 people hop into a lobby and can ghost each other while, like, wandering through levels together? Well, quote unquote together. Wander through levels on their own in their own game, but can see each other. Like, that's not playing online together. It's really not. It's playing, again, there's playing with somebody, there's playing alongside somebody, right? My biggest complaint is that a lot of multiplayer games are not co-op, because co-op means cooperative. It means you're doing things together. They're just multiplayer. There are multiple, in the most literal sense of the word, there are multiple people on screen, which just means like you're alongside each other. Like, I would argue, even at its best, like, even like a Borderlands game, right? A game that is like notable for its online, for its multiplayer, right? Even those games feel kind of like, no, I'm just sort of like playing the normal game, shooting people alongside my friends, because you can't interact with your friends hardly at all, unless you're the siren, then you can revive people. But that's it. That's literally it. But yeah, to finish the multiplayer thought, I just don't understand what people's aversion to just, like, traditional multiplayer is. And I'm not even talking about the dev side of things. Devs have been like that forever, right? But, like, I know there's a lot of, like, competitive online games. I want co-op games. I don't want battle royales and shooters and like a Call of Duty or whatever. I like playing those on occasion, okay? I like playing, like, a League of Legends every so often. Sort of. I think all that stuff is good, fine, dandy. I want co-op games. I want to sit down and play with somebody and work together to beat the game. That's what I like. That's how I enjoy things, you know? If everything's leaning, all multiplayer stuff is leaning towards such, like, heavy competitive, and I just don't get what happened to, like, just some normal cooperative games. I know they're out there, right? But, like, but I still feel like they are not super prevalent. And again, this game, they literally built, like, it's fully online, has full online capabilities, and yet and yet we just don't. And it has like a full local, normal, like traditional co-op mode, local co-op mode, right? It has full online capabilities and an online mode where you can have a lobby up to 12 people, and yet they made these two things independent ideas. They did not combine these together. And I don't understand the occasional tweet I'll see of people being like, no, I actually like this better. I actually like not playing with my friends. I like just being a ghost in other people's world. I don't want to make progress in a game with somebody, or I don't want to be able to like bump into my friend or pick them up or bounce off their heads or anything like that. I don't want that. I don't want to play with my friend. If it feels like what you want to do is you want to play Mario on a call with people, right? It's like you want to play your game on a call with people. Don't get me wrong. I've done that. I played through a lot of Spider-Man 2018 that way. I was sitting on a call with my friends while going through that. I understand that. I think that's fine. I think that's just fine. I think that's dandy. That's not that. But then what you want isn't a multiplayer game. You're not looking for a multiplayer game. You're looking for a game to play alongside people. I want a multiplayer. I want a co-op game, and I just don't know. I guess I don't understand people defending the choices, because for me, it's like if that stuff wasn't in here at all, fine, I would sure defend that. Clearly, there must have been some reason in development. If something is not in a game, it's usually not for no good reason, right? There's usually at least a reason, you know? Even if it's not a good reason, at least there's probably a reason at least. But the fact that they have local multiplayer, they have online multiplayer, and yet they removed all of the cooperative functionality out of both things. Less so with the local multiplayer. You obviously, you can still, like, you're killing enemies together, you're running through the level together, you're collecting things together. That one, that's its own thing, right? But for the online multiplayer, all cooperative functionality gone. Outside of like being able to res people as a ghost, but that feels more cheesy than like cooperative. I don't know. Like just being able to get a free revive from a random stranger you don't know. Like, no, thank you. I'm not here for that. It's like all the functionality is here, so it lacking cooperative multiplayer is weird. I think that's strange, and that feels like less defensible. And also, you don't need to, another thing as well, right? I love this game. I truly do. You don't, just because you love something doesn't mean you need to fervently defend every single aspect of it. I'm sorry, I feel like it's objectively kind of lame that like they have all this cooperative functionality in this game, and then they just don't do anything with it. Like, all the functionality is there, all the abilities are there, and then they just didn't follow through. They just didn't make it an actual cooperative experience. I don't understand that, you know? That's why I think it's lacking. If they didn't have any online functionality, if they didn't have any local multiplayer, I wouldn't think twice about it, you know? Yeah, I don't get. I mean, even 3D. Think about 3D World. Even 3D World lets you pick people up and jump off people's heads and stuff, and that's a 3D Mario game. Like, that's a 3D environment you're running around in, and they still made it like that, and it's super fun. I don't get it. I just don't get it. And on that note, I think we're going to end this here. In my defense, I actually don't think. Okay, I will say, not objectively lame that the multiplayer isn't there, because wanting multiplayer, wanting co-op, all that kind of stuff, that is a type of function that is a lot more of a person-by-person basis. I will say I do think it is strange. I feel like we can all admit that at the very least it is strange, because they have, it's all but implemented for the most part, right? But they just sort of like created these barriers around how exactly it works for no reason, you know? I mean, take this for instance. Me and my uncle, we've been playing RPGs together. Any multiplayer RPG we can, we've been getting our hands on it and playing together. We finished Secret of Mana. Not a good game. just not a good game, I'm sorry. But, however, was a perfectly fine time because I'm playing with somebody else, and that's the big thing. We can even play a bad game together, and as long as we're playing it together, it's fun. We can figure, because we know we're both sitting there questioning the choices they make in it together. But here's the thing, we just started Final Fantasy VI. And you may be thinking, well, isn't that single player? It's like, no. Oddly enough, the old Final Fantasy games, for some reason, I truly do find it strange, but for some reason, they do have multiplayer functionality. Even like the original versions of the games do. And what I was surprised to find is that the multiplayer functionality is like, it's not like, it's not expansive, it's not extensive, it's not like a breaking, it's not like breaking down barriers or anything like that, but it's a lot more, it's more detailed than I thought it would be. Because we can change, you can flip to single to multiplayer whenever you want. You can just toggle it on and off. And then you can also choose who controls what characters and how many characters each person controls. You could, for instance, like, you could have one person control 3 characters, one person control 1. You could split it down the middle. You can split the characters up in any which way you want. And I find that really interesting that they added that functionality into the game, right? Because I mean, it's an RPG, a very traditional RPG. It's turn-based, you know, it's random encounters, old pixel world maps, you know. It's very traditional. It's Final Fantasy, you know. It's the most traditional RPG series, at least at that time. It's the most traditional RPG it could be, right? So to add like the ability to play multiplayer just to do it, just because it, you know, I imagine it wasn't that hard to implement, so they decided to, you know. Giving people that option, I love to see that, you know, because I don't need it to be something to have the most expansive or detailed multiplayer. I just like having the option. I like having the ability, you know. I like having the choice, so that if I feel like it, I can sit down with a friend and we can experience a story together. I think that's really what I'm about. I want to play cooperative games where we get to go through a story. You know, we get to experience twists and turns and make choices and things like that, you know. I think my dream game, right? My dream game is pretty much what Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is shaping up to be, except Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is only 90% there. The last 10% would be that if it was multiplayer. Getting to explore that giant map as those characters, running across those big fields, fighting enemies, finding treasure, discovering things alongside another person would be amazing. Having that fighting, that combat with another person would be awesome. That's never going to happen, obviously, and I don't blame them. Adding multiplayer functionality to that kind of game specifically would be probably pretty intense. Who knows? Maybe somebody will mod it in later. Me and my friend found a mod for so I got lost in the music for a second. I just dig it. The one like synth sound is very perplexing. Cool, the little whining drone. Anyways, me and my friend found people make crazy mods. Me and my friend found a mod for Elden Ring that gives it like traditional multiplayer. Not the weird FromSoft where you get like locked into a zone and when you die you get booted out and you have to use a resource in order to like hop back into somebody's game. Like, no, you just hop into somebody's game, you exist in their world. When you get booted out, you exist with all the same things you got in that game in your own world. But you can explore as much as you want, you can do whatever you want, go as far as you want. They went as far as to add a penalty, because when one person dies, they respawn at a bonfire, they can run back in the moment. But every time you die, you get a debuff, a pretty drastic debuff on your character until you both sit down reset the world at the bonfire. So they even thought of that. They even thought of a good way to balance people dying. And if you're in a boss fight, if one person dies, then they stay out. They even added like a spectate mode. You have to spectate the other person and wait for them to either die to the boss or beat the boss. So it's cool. I don't know. I appreciate stuff like that. I appreciate multiplayer stuff like that. It's what I want. It's what I've always wanted since I was a kid. I wanted to sit down and play games with my friends and my uncle and stuff. So, you know, it's nice to be able to do that.